Okay, we should be live right now. Just want to get everything correct. Let's see. Okay, so can't exactly see the chat just yet, but we should be live. So didn't have it as well set up. Trying to get this window all set up, but this gives me time because usually takes a bit for people to start coming in. But we should have a pretty good. Here we go. So I think that should be good. So, of course, Horseman number 1 is still ongoing. I mean, it launched this past Friday, so it's been a week. It's Good Friday. Christ is risen. Of course, this is the day of his crucifixion. Sunday commemorates his resurrection, of course, but this is, of course, about the Rippaverse. This is comic books. Almost at that 150K benchmark, 5,000 books sold for Horseman number 1. It's a pretty strong start to the ongoing series that is The Horseman. But let me get my StreamYard. So, oh, yes, we've got Andrew in the chat. Nice to see you. So I definitely want to talk to you sometime, interview you again on Braxcast as a pre-recorded shindig because we've got Ripazine 3 that just came out. We got 4 people viewing right now. And I have read, oh yeah, so we got Doug Shea in the chat. Nice to see you again. So I definitely want to talk about what the Rippaverse is missing. That's something that Student of God told me. If I can get up to, let's see, here we go. We've got this one. So Eric put this out this week, the 14th, I believe, is a Monday, but that doesn't really matter too much. It says we've gone sci-fi with Dirty Deeds. We'll be talking about that soon. I'll definitely be talking about that on the 62nd episode of the Braxcast because that's going to be pretty exciting. I'll go through the entire Ripazine. Definitely a really good issue. You guys really outdid yourself, Andrew. And I'll say I really liked the 16-page short story. Told a complete story. I think there was a lot that was going on. The pacing in the middle didn't feel the best, but it definitely justifies having its own limited series. I'd say 250 to 300 pages, really explaining this whole thing that Caro's got going on because it's a lot more than 16 pages, and trying to condense all that story. I guess all that world building is not possible. So that's why I felt a little bit lacking in some sense. But art-wise, Evan really outdid himself. It was a fantastic book. So we got Ram in the chat. Nice to see you. Of course, I know a thing or three about what's missing and what's coming. Yes. But I definitely agree with Student of God. And if he's in the chat, I'm sure he'll come in eventually. One of the things that I see as missing definitely is like a Deadpool type of character. I definitely think we need a character like the Hulk. We've got Santon and Shadron. These are big bruiser type characters, but they're villains, they're heels. But having a character that's good, but also is got that big physicality about him would be a really interesting thing. That's the thing that I can think of really off the bat. But one of the things I say was missing, and I still think is, we've got Dirty Deeds, which is a really good, but this science fiction that Dirty Deeds and Zalen offers in terms to the, something like Gooding that's a lot more grounded, a lot less I guess fantastical and cosmic, I would say. But even though Dirty Deeds is it's more Star Wars and like Battlestar Galactica, where it's you know on a planet, but it's on an extraterrestrial planet, right? I definitely think stuff like that is missing, and the Zalen, of course, being this like really cosmic story with more focused on the science fantasy. I am presuming so much more than that, of course, NDA. But yeah, no, I really like Dirty Deeds, and I really like the rest of the Ripazine. There was a lot of interesting stuff in Lillian's Hot Tea, and of course, Michael Copper's personality shined through on that issue there, or his Gentleman's Club, I should say. We got HR. I definitely like and retweet that. Thank you so much for that. And of course, I think another thing, Edwin Boyette, he's come on the live stream. I think it was like the first or second episode. Great issue. If you're talking about Dirty Deeds, certainly was a really great issue with Ripazine. Yes, this was a really good one. Of course, Item Free preview, man, really like I want the whole book because like all 144 pages because it was like just as it was like really warming up and I'm gonna find out more. No. It ends because there's a preview. It's a couple of pages. So yeah, Ripazine is a really great place if you're interested in the Rippaverse. If you're just like coming in on the replay or you're watching this live with me, and you don't know what the Rippaverse is, what is this guy talking about? The Ripazine is a really great way to get into the Rippaverse. It's only $8 for an issue, and even though these are numbered issues, you don't need to read Ripazine number 1 or number 2 to get value from the Ripazine. Of course, a preview of Item Free isn't going to mean as much to someone who hasn't read Item 1 and 2, but it's definitely indicative of what the book Item is. But the art for Item Free is really good from what I've seen. I definitely like Chang's coloring. Cliff is definitely really jiving with doing Eric's script. I would say, and it's going to be really, really exciting to see that conclusion to the ill-advised arc. But getting a little preview of Ripazine Free is really nice. Seeing Dirty Deeds, reading that after the community's been talking about it so much was definitely a really nice thing. And of course, Evan Scale's art is absolutely fantastic. So I definitely want a full, like I said, 250 to 300 pages of really just exploring the Dirty Deeds crew and what sort of escapades they get into. And I definitely think that's what has to happen in order for this first short story to make sense, because we only get like Spingy and I think Arad, if I'm getting that correctly. And it's really interesting. Like I like what's going on, but there's not really much world building. There's basically not much in terms of characterization because it's so short. And there was just this overarching plot that introduces a lot on its own. That Carol was focusing on, and it tells a really short and complete story. It tells a really short story, but it's very complete. It's just that with everything that was packed in there and everything that's hinted at, it does feel like it's a little bit. It can feel like it's a bit confusing. I had to go and reread it, but I think it's structured pretty decently and it's drawn fantastically. So I really would love to see what Caro does if she has a couple of, she can tell a 96-page story or even like a 56 or 72-page story, and the way she can get that world building and characterization to really give the context to the reader. And of course seeing more art from Evan Scale in terms of like what he did with this short story in the Ripazine number 3. Absolutely would love to see that. I think it'd be worth buying just on that alone, just as a nice book to flip through, even if you don't care about the story. The art was fantastic. I think it's definitely up there with Rippaverse art. I think it's really, really good. I would say probably. I'm not sure. I don't know. Yaira is like got its own style to it. But I'd say it's on par with any of Joe Bennett's work, which is really, really cool to say. But yeah, so we've got this article from Edwin Boyette, who reviewed Dirty Deeds, and I guess I'm giving my own thing. But this is really, really cool to see. And let's see. We'll see what he's saying. It says scrap. That is the kind of expletive that they have that they say to each other. But the really interesting thing about the uh, the really interesting thing to me are the Beatles, and I guess I'm getting into spoiler territory, but that's a really interesting thing because we have the Void Scarabs, and I think there's some crossover there. So we could have like Magus Newmite or people or aliens connected to Magus Newmite that are the enemies of Dirty Deeds. So that's where I'll leave it at. But it's packs a lot of action in the 16 pages, and the exposition is minimal, leaning heavily on show don't tell. It's a classic sci-fi adventure, and from what is shown, falls somewhere in between Guardians of the Galaxy and Firefly. The Dirty Deeds crew appears to be some amalgamation of a mercenary and smuggler group. As the story opens, half of the crew is making a getaway from the settlement with either pilfered or illegal cargo when the settlement is attacked by a group of insectile aliens named the Lumamax. At least two of the crew, a rat and Solia, appear to be former soldiers of some sort, and it goes into more of that. But definitely, I'll put this into the chat like that in case you guys want to read that. But we'll move on from this. But but I think getting back into what I think is missing, I think the science fiction is really sorely missing because Edwin is not the most like into I don't know I'd say in tune guy, but he's more of someone who commentates on the space in terms of like how stuff is selling and making anthropological observations. He's not the biggest invested super fan like I myself am. Oh yeah, and Edwin is in the chat. So if you like to talk, if you got some budgeted time to have a little bit of an appearance, I'll definitely put the link in the chat. So if anybody wants to come on and gab with me, since I'm a bit oh no, I guess I'm a bit scattered brained, but Represine number 3 has got some interesting stuff outside of Dirty Deeds. Like I said, that preview for Item 3 was the highlight for me. But of course, on the page just before, you have what's it called? I got it right here. Like I said, just flipping through the Dirty Deeds art's absolutely fantastic. But we've got the if I can find the flipping page. Oh yeah, Catch and Kill, and there's a bunch of post-it notes that's got some like lore, I guess about the Rippaverse. We've got the SSWL's resident superstar Larry Shungite has gone off book recently, challenging the company for not respecting his worth. Is this part of the show or something more personal? So there's stuff like that. There's Mick Davies has been meeting with After Hours, Dirty Cop, or some kind of dirty secret. So maybe the Horseman's getting to know Mick Davies. Of course, Mick Davies knows the Alpha Core, so Brian could have said something offhand and said, "Hey, watch this guy," and then Mick meets with Hector and like agrees to kind of help him do his vigilante work, especially in the context with I believe it's Cal Buxton. So it's going to be really, really interesting to get the first issue of Horseman and really get into what Chuck has planned for getting this character into the ability to be a consistent vigilante in Flores Park. Because, of course, Horseman Welcome to Flores Park is just explaining how the Horseman gets to Flores Park, and it leaves him in a position where he definitely can get back into the game, and clearly he's going to because he's going to have his ongoing series. But it's like, well, how does he get to the end of Horseman Welcome to Flores Park and into the place where he's going to be, running around cleaning up the scum of Flores Park in the way, Punisher or I believe Daredevil. I think he's another character that's in the vein of Punisher. Although I'm a newbie to comics, so I'm not the most well-read, so I wouldn't necessarily know. But that's the thing that interests me to see that, and it's going to be the method of this like eccentric fan that's got connections. So we'll definitely see how that plays out, but it's going to be really interesting to see just see that. And it's also going to be interesting to see how Mick Davies and the Alpha Corps and the police force work into responding to Horseman, because of course they're aware of him, and they're going to of course be aware of the public displays that Cal is making to get Hector back into the game, right? But if anybody wants, like I said, if Andrew wants to come on to the show, that's perfectly okay. If not, it's an either or. But I want to get my window I have for StreamYard actually working. Not actually working. I just want to get it in a good like where I can see everything. But yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. So we got that. I think that's better. We got 8 people in the chat, so if you guys want to say hello, if not, that's perfectly fine. Although I guess like it's exciting that the Ripazine number 3 came out, but there's another thing, and I just remembered because there's so much stuff going on that that's already been announced. But Yaira number 3 is launching this Monday, guys, for pre-order. So we just got Yaira 2, and when I was reading Yaira 2, and it says Yaira 3 is going to be out later this year, I thought, hey, maybe they'll release it in November, like a couple of months, sometime after the summer. Not before April is over, especially after Horseman #1 comes out. Like they are just churning, man, and it's absolutely fun to see. So let's play this. I'm not sure if you guys can uh, inherently see this, but let's see. Yeah, so this is the IR free launch date announcement. There we go. So I'm not sure how much of that it makes my screen full. Let's see. So it's like, I can't see that in the chat. So Logic's Finest is in the chat. It says, I'd like to see some World War II stories in the Rippaverse blending the war with sci-fi, fantasy, or horror. Any or all of those genres. That'd be interesting to have like some really period pieces. You know, you could do World War II, you could do World War One, you could do the Korean War, of course, the Vietnam War. I think that's a really interesting. Those are all really interesting eras, and of course, you can put in mysticism. You can put in stuff that goes on in Blood Roof #1. So you could have like, biblical stuff in there mixing into it. Oh, Ed was in the back room. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, I just see you right now. Sorry about that. But Edwin is in the chat. Hello. So we got Zay Comics. Hello. I just read the introduction to Magic Cop. I'm going to get the books. Zay Comics was so nice to send some books to me, Magic Cops and the Lost Pages, and I got to get the review and the overview done by this month. So definitely got to do that. But I read a little bit of Magic Cop and I really liked it so far. But Edwin, if you can hear me, please say something.
Hey, happy Good Friday.
Yes, happy Good Friday to you. Christ is risen. Really nice to have you back. And you enjoyed the Dirty Deeds story in Ripazine Free. So why not? Let's talk about that, since I think, other than Yair Free, that's the most relevant news.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. And I did a review of that. I think you shared some of that. My challenge with reviews is because it's only a 16-page story, it's like I didn't want to spoil it too much, right?
Yeah,
So
no, yeah, I understand that.
and I figured sci-fi fans would kind of, if you ever watched the Firefly series.
I've heard of it. I might have watched like an episode or so, but it's not something I'm super familiar with, and I'm not familiar with Battlestar Galactica. But I get the vibe that it
Yeah.
goes for. And I played the Guardians of the Galaxy game, and it's kind of like that, where it's more humorous. There's this like analog nature to the flying of ships and such, so it's not like these characters are like communicating through like internet or doing stuff that's there is tech, but it also feels like the way they thought of tech like in the 80s. Like you watch the like original Alien movie, and I reviewed that as a paid movie review. So if you guys want to pay for the Substack and read my review of Alien, you're welcome to. But anyway, I really like that movie, and I love the design of those pieces. And I think that's the origin of the sci-fi you guys are talking about, like this retro futurism, and that being the mindset of how you tell these science fiction stories. And I think Dirty Seeds exemplifies that, and that's what really I think is drawing people into Dirty Deeds, and that's why they definitely really need to do, like I said, a 250 to 300 page um, limited series, and to really let this story that Caro has in her mind to be told, and then they can go from there. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was going to say that Firefly is actually a space western, and I picked up on that a little bit. But I was going to ask you, the indigo skinned woman, when she is communicating with the ground crew, and I was looking at this and trying to discern this, is she talking to them via radio or is she talking to them telepathically?
Let's see. Indigo skinned woman. Oh, oh yeah, like when she's in the I guess we'll talk about spoilers, but it's after she does the mind control, and she says the yeah.
Even before, so they're running away from the settlement, pew pew, and then Adar's got his energy shield up, which Andrew wouldn't let Carol comment on. And then next page over, top panel, when she's talking, she's got her eyes closed and two fingers pressed to her head.
Oh yeah, I see that. Yeah, no, that's most likely her. Yeah, she's doing it telepathically because she's got a more like an Amazonian thing going on. And I'll speak into the microphone so you can hear me. So if you look at that if you look at that closely, because I was looking at the book to see what you were getting at. So yeah, she's most likely doing that telepathically, and she's probably, and especially in the context of what happens later. And I guess
Yeah.
we're full of spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, 16
yeah,
pages
16
and it's
pages that we have to. But you see when the Beatles come into their ship and try and destroy it, she commands them to kill the comrades. So that same way she's able to communicate. But of course she can, choose to do the mind control stuff, but she's not going to do that to her friends. So of course she's just doing that and being like a voice in your head. So yeah, that's definitely the way she's going about it. But that's like the thing that I'm saying where it's more low tech, and I think that's where the Western vibe comes in. Right, because if you want to do a Western, you're trying to invoke this like 19th century, on horses shooting revolvers at people and stuff like that, and you can't do that if everything is super super high tech, like how Star Trek is, and you've got the replicators and everything, and it's very like formal, and they're a part of the Federation, and they're following all these rules like you would expect, like some super advanced civilization would be doing. This is like a bunch of people who are stealing cargo, like illicit cargo on a legal ship, trying to make it big. Right? It's got a much more on, like I said, low tech. I think is the way to describe it. But I really like it, and I think it's definitely something that the fans want more of. But I want to get into Logic Finest comment, and then I'll let you back. You can have the floor again. But I want to like but it's really nice. Let's see. I'd like to see other mythologies in the Rippaverse that are out of the norm. The Orishas, Japanese mythologies, Aztec, Hindu, yeah, all of that stuff. And I think the Kari, is getting into the African mythology. So I definitely think there's a will for that. It's just fitting that into the stories. But I think Norfolk would probably be the best, place to have that, because you could definitely have those be the allies and the heels to Valadon and Takari, as you've got Norfolk. And you've also got Copper, I believe, Records, being the big label, and that's probably going to be in the Norfolk series, as like it's going to be part like this supernatural story where they're dealing with these gods and legendary things that are trying to destroy the world. That's hinted at in Item 1, and then you'll also have them being against like the corporate machine that's ruining music as well. So it's going to be really fun to see.
so is that gonna channel a little something kind of like Neil Gaiman's or Neil Gaiman's American Gods?
I wouldn't know. The only thing I know from Neil Gaiman is I believe it's Rorschach, or oh yeah, I think it's like I forget the series, but I'm not familiar with his work because I haven't read any of that. I don't even know, but there's a decent chance that's the case. But like I said, I think there's a lot of mythological and supernatural stuff that's going to be talked about in Norfolka for sure, and you're going to have most likely. You'll have like I said, that contrasted with their music career, and it's
Mm,
going to be from the perspective of them being an alternative to the corporate music. And I think that's like a bit personal for Eric, because if you know the history of his band backwards, and I'm not the most initiated on this because I listen to Veracity and I've listened to him commentate on it. One of the things that is very similar with his comic book um, company, or his approach to comic books, and his approach to being in the comic book industry is the same with the music industry, is that most of the people in those industries respectively are not uh economically savvy, and they're not making money.
mm.
That's certainly the case for a lot of bands that go on tour. They're absolutely broke, and most of the money that they make goes to expenses and their agent. That's basically the gist of what Eric was saying. So I think that kind of those observations and that like I guess scape of the music industry, I think he's going to depict that with Norfolka, and I think Copper Records or Copper Entertainment. I'll find it, but I believe that will be the heel because it's mentioned in Ripazine #3. Oh, we got Genuine Comics in the chat. So this is Dave Brink from Genuine Comics. So be sure to follow him. Buy his books. I believe Perfect 10 #5 is in is still, I'm not sure if his funding is closed, but whatever he's got, Go to Genuine Comics. You can buy comics directly from him. Whatever Indiegogo he's got, he's a really good creator. Works with great people, especially Pal Rodrick's. Perfect 10's really great. I liked let's see. I liked American Bliss, and I reviewed a lot of Genuine comic stuff because they do fantastic work over there. So it's really nice to see him in the chat. Mike has bad knees. It's nice to see you in the chat as well. And Zaid is agreeing with you that American Gods is good if that's what you're saying.
Well, the reason I mentioned American Gods is that you're a person of faith, obviously, also, and you might agree with me that everyone seems to have an intrinsic need for religion. Some people try to replace it with other things, but we all seem to have an intrinsic need for religion. And so, if if lowercase gods existed, because modernity has rejected most of mystic traditions and traditional worship. What does worship look like now? It looks like celebrity culture. And so if you were a lowercase god, a lowercase g god in search of worship, you would probably perhaps seek out being some sort of celebrity, maybe a musician.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. And this is one of the things that I realized, and I wouldn't say I'm a very faithful person, but one of the things is I came to the conclusion because I'm a very, I guess I would say rational is the best way. It's more like materialist. I love science and, all the sciences. I love logic. I love problem solving and such like that. Such like that. But I love just being analytical, and that's one of the reasons I love history is reconstructing these events and understanding why these civilizations formed and why they followed is an interesting thing for me. And of course, just like science, like knowing how stuff works is really really interesting. So with all of that is thinking about that and pondering it is that I came to the conclusion that the cosmos was intentionally and intelligently designed for life, and the designer, of course, would be God. And the reason why humans have this intrinsic need, like you said, for religion is because we were made in the image of God, and you want to be like the image. In order to do that, you need to have faith in God, and you need to do things that bring you closer to communion with Him. This is one of the things I said in Humte Potpourri. I've this episode or the last. You can check out the Substack, and I post it on Twitter every week. But anyway, one of the things I said is that it's a common theme throughout all religions to establish that humanity is fallen, it's sinful. If flesh is wicked, all flesh leads to death. The wages of sin is death. That's the Christian perspective. Of course, you've got the cycle of reincarnation, and the goal is to get out of the fallen nature of man, of humanity, of the physical world, and be elevated to God, being one with God. And the Orthodox Christian perspective, that's called theosis. Right, and it's pretty similar. I would say Catholics, and I say a lot of Protestants. The idea is to have union with the mystical body of Christ, and that's the theme throughout religion, is that you want to have this connection with God, and that speaks to the intrinsic need of people to have that, of people to have a spiritual life. And you're definitely correct. We've had that taken away through a lot of psyops, and of course, there's apostasy, and people are replacing that with. Trying to replace that with nothing, replacing that with dopamine hits, replacing that with, being in part of wacky cults. But that's I think what you're getting at is a really good thing, and I definitely think it's something that would really be great cultural commentary if you had these minor gods or even demons, right? Because we have Bloodroof, and of course we know there's demons, and demons love to work through others. So, and of course, Hollywood being satanic and the music industry being satanic, that's not necessarily an unrealistic thing. So that have like actual demons possessing like these Hollywood starlets and these top tier or these Billboard charting musicians would be a really interesting thing to go about. And of course, having like minor gods that are similar to Takari and Baladan competing with them in, let's say, the music or the film industry would be a really interesting thing to see as well.
100%. Logic's Finest says, Norfolka, I'm absolutely looking forward to. However, my point is, mythologies can be explored in more than just one book. Doing so allows a wider perspective. And, you could also argue that the Rippaverse is creating its own mythology.
Yeah, and so this is the thing is that like Captain America, Batman, Superman, this is the American mythology that's been established. That's our common cultural stories that we've told to each other. I think this is the difference. This is the reason why Greek and Roman mythology is seen as mythologies because of the fantastical natures of these stories, and that was even established like when the Roman Empire was an empire and they had the story of Romulus and Remus suckling from the wolves and Romulus killing Reams and establishing the Seven Hills by the Tiber's River. A lot of that was understood to be a legendary thing that developed much later after the founding of the actual, proto-Roman kingdom and the Roman kingdom, which became the Roman Republic, and then eventually the Roman Empire. Whereas you have something like the story of Christ and how soon the religion formed around it is definitely much different. It's too soon to be a legend, but that's a whole other thing there. But it's very clear with the way that the comic books were introduced that of course they're works of fiction, right? And that's the mythology that we have where we're having these fictional stories, right, that we know are fiction that have no bearing on reality, but they are exemplifying the traits and the themes that our culture holds the most dear. And of course, a lot of that has become like going against the culture and doing things that are explicitly anti American and just anti human, right? You've seen this with the um, absolute trash stuff that Marvel's put out, like, post 2015. And of course, they were getting stale in the late 90s is what I hear. And of course, I mean, a lot of it was susceptible to World War II propaganda as well. But the point is that there was like, around, maybe the golden silver age of comics where we had this, these genuine American cultural values that were positive, and those were exemplified in characters like Captain America and Spider-Man and Superman and Batman, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It'll be interesting to see, as the Rippaverse matures, what do they do 10 years from now? Because I have the sensation that the Rippaverse will have stakes, meaning every character or villain that's alive today may not be alive 10 years from now. And I'm sure they'll cross that bridge when they come to it. But really good stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And unfortunately, with a lot of these corporate properties that everybody's so attached to because of their very nature and the need to, merchandise them and monetize them in certain ways, there is no stake. Batman's never going to die. Superman's never going to die. Captain America, they may switch him around and stuff, but the big characters may get co-opted or transformed in some way, but they're not going anywhere because they're the big money making intellectual properties for these companies. So they're no longer exactly stories. Exactly, they're IPs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And the thing is that they'll kill a character off and then they'll reboot the character, right? It feels very cheap and corporate. You're not telling a genuine story. And you can kind of, do this. I think there's a happy medium between this. Like Battle Beast is a character from Invincible, and he dies in Invincible. He's killed by Frag like later in the series of Invincible. I have the trades and a lot of things, so I couldn't tell you what happened in the issues. And there's like 144 issues of Invincible. But anyway, it happens later. There's this fight between Frag and Battle Beast, and now they're bringing Battle Beast back next month. And I think I'll probably get that book from my local comic book shop and I'll read it. Ryan Otley's doing the art, and he did a really good job on work he did for Invincible. And he did, like, I'd say most of that interior art. There was a couple artists, that subbed in for him for a couple of issues. And he also worked on Amazing Spider-Man, and I have one trade that he drew. It's really, really good stuff. So I liked it. We got Garfield's Bizarre Adventure in the chat. Hail to you. Hopefully you got your Ribbazine, Garfield. You're very excited for Dirty Deeds, and I think it's going to live up to your expectations. But yeah, to get back on point. I think bringing a character like Battle Beast back from where he was in Invincible, like you can tell a cool story, and people are going to like that, and I'm sure I probably will. I'll pick up the book from my local comic book shop next month, and read it, and I'll probably most likely like it. But the thing is that you can only do that so many times, and for Marvel and DC, a lot of it is just we'll kill a character off and then we'll reboot them so we can make another Captain America #1 or the Amazing Spider-Man #1 or whatever #1, and we can get more collectors to buy it. Let's see. So Garfield got his greatly enjoyed Dirty Deeds. Spingy is going to solo everyone in the Rippaverse. Kind of agree with that. I like Spingy. Spingy. That's his name, Spingy.
I think it's Spingy, and I kind of think of it as like spinning a web, because there's a little hint of arachnism, right?
Oh yeah, well, I think there's a big hint of arachnism considering he's shooting like silk to keep the ship's engine bay intact.
Need more silk. Spoilers. Well, Brax, I need to call it an evening. The missus and I are going to go get some dinner, but thank you for letting me pop in for a couple of minutes, and thank you for sharing my review.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, keep up. You have a good dinner, and you have a fantastic Easter weekend.
Okay. Have a great night. Happy Easter.
Yep. Okay, so that was Edwin Boyette. Very graciously came and had a nice little conversation with us. We got Student of God, who's a little bit late. He took a nap, which is okay. Let's see. So Marvel and DC don't create or innovate anymore. Rippaverse has a wide open door to pick up what the big two have dropped. Yeah, I certainly agree with the sentiment. The thing is, I would love to see Marvel and DC return to form. And if, the Rippaverse gets so big, let's say, instead of making like $1 to $5 million, and that's not even inaccurate. It's more like they're in that $5 to $10 million range per year. Not saying they're making that, but it's probably where they're at now. And if they get to like, let's say 15 to 20, and then 20 to 50, and then 50 to $100 million a year off of the comic books, and they become this media powerhouse. And in the course of that, Disney and Warner make DC great, make DC and Marvel great again, so to speak. That would be a fantastic thing for the industry. And I think this is one of the things that Eric said, especially early on, is that the comic book industry needs to change. And if the Rippaverse is the impetus for that, fantastic. If not, and it just happens, that's fantastic as well. And I think with the people who are doing independent comics, Dave Brink was in the chat. Of course, we've got Iconic Comics. The Rippaverse is just in a sea of great independents that are putting out genuine work. Of course, the audiences are going to be smaller, so you're not going to have these massive nodes. You're going to have a big network, or you'll have some slightly bigger nodes, but it's going to be a lot more of these micro niches and smaller communities that are going to form the parallel economy that we like to say. And I think it's going to have its benefits. It's going to have its drawbacks as well, especially for people who are I think starting my age and older, that remember when physical media was the dominant way for people to enjoy things, like VCRs and CDs and records, and of course, physical video games, and having to go brick and mortar to buy anything, and having to go to the movie theater. And if you watched TV, you had to record it on a video cassette. You gotta remember to tape Friends before you go out on Friday night, right? That's something you said. You don't even have to tape your shows. You just stream them. It's like, oh, it comes out this week, I'll watch it an hour after when it's live, right? So it's a lot more, I don't say casual, but yeah, it's definitely changed the way people have consumed media. The internet has, and it allows more people to create media and get it out to everybody, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to be consuming the same things. And the the third places that formed around these cultural, I guess, pieces. Movie theaters, video games, arcades really aren't a thing. Movie theaters are in the decline. I mean, they're trying to let people puff on the devil's lettuce and use their phones, try and get people back in movie theaters. And that's certainly not going to work. Let's see. But let's see. Rippaverse got good profits. The industry does not. Definitely agree with that, especially Marvel and DC. Marvel is part of Disney, and Disney is not in the best spot. And the comics business is not going to be able to keep them afloat. So I think the Marvel Comics division is only owned by Disney, just so that way they don't lose. I don't know, just for them to have it. And of course, they can do promotional events with stuff that comes out from the movies and have this control of the brand. Marvel Rivals is doing well, so that's most likely going to remain profitable. If it is already profitable, most likely is. Considering how popular it is, I'm sure it's making a decent amount of money. They're doing a swimsuit issue to promote costumes from the game, so they're really leaning into the fact that people want attractive character designs. People want pin-up covers. People want those sexy bikini skins. We can talk about lust and the fallen nature of man, but that's what's popular. And I'd rather have a culture that at least is trying to exemplify beauty rather than just uglifying and making everything look sanitized. But that's a whole other thing. I think Concord, yeah. I mean, there's a reason why Marvel Rivals is getting people's interest in Concord isn't. But of course, Marvel Rivals has the benefit of that built-in brand recognition using these characters that have existed for, 20, 30, and even in some cases like 80 years, right? In the case of like Captain America and, the Fantastic Four is more like around 60 years. I think they were introduced in the 60s. But anyway, so let's see. We've got Mike has bad knees. People still show up to the theaters if the movie is good. I agree with that. But this has been happening for a while. So Gone with the Wind, adjusted for the inflation, is the highest grossing movie. Like I said, adjusted for inflation, that's the movie that made the most amount of money. And that movie came out, I don't know, I forget, like the 40s. I think it came out before the 50s. But I can't remember exactly when. But the golden era of Hollywood's long been over, and the cinemas, I should say, have been in decline ever since then. So since, like, I would say like the 60s onwards, I'd say the cinema industry, like the movie theater industry, has been on this slow decline. Of course, I think it held pretty strong until sometime when streaming took over, let's say the 2010s or so, and that's when all the content got bad. But to me, I think less and less people have been going to the movie theaters because of the alternative ways to entertain yourself, and especially today with streaming, but even in the later parts of the 20th century, you think 80s, 90s, and yeah, I'd say 80s, 90s, the rise of video cassettes and Blockbuster allowed people to just wait until it came out on video, and people would just buy it and watch it there, or rent it from Blockbuster and just watch it. And that's where a lot of people checked out, or just watch old movies and rent them, because it would be easier to just go after work, get a couple of movies, and that's how you spend your weekend, right? Let's see. We've got Brandon 698 in the chat. Hello to you. I don't believe I've seen you before, but hello to you. Hopefully you are enjoying this so far. Let's see. So Marvel doesn't create, it only destroys its own characters for this modern audience that doesn't actually exist. Yes. This is what Marvel and DC, and this is what a lot of the modern creatives have done, especially in the MCU, because the people who are writing and making these movies, one, they're not communicating with each other, and they don't often read the comic books, and they don't have this passion to tell a story. It's like they're working on it from projects. Oh, Brandon from the warehouse manager. So if you want to have a chat, let's see. I can share. I can invite. I'll send the link again. But yeah, if not, it's perfectly fine. But anybody, there's the link. It's right there. But yeah, absolutely, hail to you. Fantastic work this week getting all the Ripazines out. But when are we getting Zalen and Isom 3? Because I want to get those like sometime in May, because I'm moving in June, and I'd like to have those read and reviewed before I move. But hopefully, man, those comes, especially Isom 3. I'm really excited for that, and Zalen's going to be really exciting. But it's, yeah, there's just so much on with the Ripazine. Of course, Yaira Free is launching. Oh yeah, no, it's okay. You enjoy your time with the family, but hopefully you're having a good one. And thanks for popping by in the chat, regardless. But hopefully everybody's having a good time. Of course, hail Brandon is what Student of God said. So I guess we can. We got Edwin Boyette's review up there. Let's see. We've got Horseman #1. We've got Great War Separation 2 is still ongoing, of course. Let's see. I'll update you all about Zalen and Great War soon. Fantastic to see. See, I go on vacation the first week in June. Can I get either one by then? I think we'll get updates on that soon. I'm not sure if we need to be haranguing Brandon on NDA stuff. We don't want Dokuman Andrew to interrupt his family's time. But yeah, Great War Separation 2 is over 5,000 books sold, $164,000 in total sales. Of course, I forget exactly how much the first Great War Separation made. That's, of course, that's what the ticker says. It sold more after the fact. And when it's keeping track of these public numbers right here. And it's been pretty good for the Rippaverse in terms of the amount of profit that they have, right? And this is not to say that just because something is profitable or makes money that it's good. I've laid out my case in all the reviews why I like the books. And if you agree with me, that's fantastic. If you don't, that's fantastic as well. But there clearly is a lot of quality storytelling going on, or else there wouldn't be a fan base that's consistently buying the books. And that consistent purchasing means that they've got the profits, and that's all being poured back into making the warehousing better, the website better, the stories better, and expanding the offerings, and those main offerings being the comic books. I mean, just look at the output. And I think it's there's enough of a readership to justify it. And I think having this massive back catalog of books that people can read and get invested into is, one, going to make the Rippaverse feel like a legitimate publisher and a legitimate comic book universe, but it's also going to be really foundational to having a good business strategy. Let's see. Unfortunately, Great War Cover 2A sold out during the pre-order. I really wanted that one, but Cover D is also awesome as well, so I bought that one instead. Yeah, Cover A. We can look at Cover A. And as you can see, we've only got these three in stock. So Cover B is fantastic. You can still get Cover B. Cover C is there. And of course, we got Cover D. So I snagged a pack of these. And I'm getting, like I said, we've got the book pack. So yeah, I'm not sure if the book pack, you see, because we have the book pack, and that's, you see, it says, oh, Great War Separation 2. It's out of stock because you don't have any Cover A's. So you can't get the book pack. So I think, what you might want to do for this, if you've got if Andrew's in the chat, get one of the devs to make the book pack with just these 3 books. So, and reduce the, the price by, $15 or so. Make that about, I don't know, 85, $80. And that would be fantastic. So let's see. We could go over the comments from Eric's post about what we'd like to see from the Rippaverse. Yes. So let's see. So we've got a bunch of notifications, but we'll go back to this. So these comments here. So he's got 92 comments. So we got Rippaverse Wookie. Of course, he goes by on Twitter as Incredulous Papist. He is I would say, more of a trad calf type of guy. So while that is not something I necessarily respect. But anyway, I think he's pretty cool, and of course, he runs the Rippaverse Wiki. He does a great job at it. I do give him assets and stuff, but he's a fantastic guy. And he says, personally, I'd like a vigilante that's straight up a hero rather than an anti-hero. This is what I thought Horseman would be originally, and I imagine what he'll turn into eventually. But I'd like one who was always that way. Interesting. So yeah, I think Hector's got the most tight moral compass of most, or a much straighter moral compass than most characters, but having one that's operating, outside of the law but doing it in a way that's much more uptight and moral, and he's doing it not for his own personal benefit but for the benefit of everyone around him. It's kind of why people like Spider-Man, because he's constantly broke and his life is always a disaster, but he's doing this because he has this moral obligation to protect the citizens of New York. I think that's one of the reasons why Spider-Man has been as as culturally relevant as he has been. Although less so these days, because it absolutely ruined the ethos of his character. And like he can't have a family with Mary Jane. He has to be in this like weird situationship type deal. But yeah, that's one of the things I hate. It's one of the things I hate. I'm 27, so I'm like I'm a boomer zoomer. That's what I like to say. I'm basically the oldest of Gen Z. There's like maybe I think like 97, 96 was born in 98, so maybe like 2 or so years of people that are Gen Z that are older than me. And our generation, Gen Z, has been the most transactional when it comes to romance, and having Spider-Man have like a loving marriage. It really exemplifies the thing that makes marriage beautiful, the thing that makes the human experience beautiful, is sharing love with somebody else. Has been completely taken away from that. It's one of the reasons why people are checking out from the Marvel DC duopoly and going into the Rippaverse and other independent work. So Brandon is saying, he was asked by Mike Has Bad News, what's been your favorite part about working for the Rippaverse? And his response is excitement of the fans receiving and enjoying the books and products we offer. I know that sounds like a generic thing, but when Eric first offered me this job, I told him my focus will always be the fan. Absolutely fantastic. You guys do great work. Everything I've gotten is well packaged. I think there was only like, I think when Alpha Core came out, I had an Alpha Core cover A that I had ordered, and it took a while because it got lost in the system. It's like they were auditing, they're saying, "Hey, we're checking. Did you get this?" Like, no, and then I got it like a couple days later. So I've been very professional. Do things absolutely fantastically. Let's see, that's why I always like doing the conventions. I genuinely love seeing the excitement. And I love seeing the excitement too. It's why I do the Braxcast, because I want to foster it, and I want to be a place where people who are fans of the Rippaverse, I like imagine most of you guys are, definitely know, Student of God, Garfield, Micah's Bad Knees. You've read, you've probably, some of you've been since for as long as I have, since Season 1. But for the new people as well, to give a place where you can go and see that there's a fan base and see that these books have stories, and cut through all of the noise and the nonsense that exists. And so there's a genuine community. So let's see, Isaac 556x45 is saying a full-on spy thriller with tactical stealth elements would be awesome. Think along the lines of Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, Arkham Batman, etc. A good comic of an original character with those elements, with attention to highlighting specific tactical gear, would be awesome. I remember playing Splinter Cell on the original Xbox. This is probably a little, around 20 years ago or so, when when I had played the original Xbox. My dad had gotten it, and there was so I remember playing Halo. I remember playing Whacked, and I do remember playing Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, but very vaguely. And yeah, the idea of like a Splinter Cell type of character, I forget what his name, Sam Fisher, is that the name of the protagonist of Splinter Cell? That would be I think a really interesting character to have, a character that probably would be the third LF certified character to me, is a character, like if Sam Fisher, I'm getting the name correctly, or someone like a Bruce Wayne, like the Arkham Batman Bruce Wayne, very tactical, very controlled, and also like very like a clandestine CIA agent would be a really, really cool thing to see. But we've got Matt Barr. Of course, he's a pretty, I'd say, prolific artist. He did Rock and Roll Ninja. That's what I know him from, but he's done other stuff as well. He says, military honor, because I just want to see that genre happen if Tom Clancy wrote horror, or military horror, excuse me. That would be a really interesting thing. If Tom Clancy wrote horror, right? Dimensional travel, not saying multiverse, but old school Doctor Strange was dope with the weird stuff. Prehistory / Hyborea. What was the Rippaverse like 10,000 years ago? Barbarian swords. You could introduce a serpent crown MacGuffin. 2099. What's the future of the Rippaverse? Is Isom remembered? These are all really good ideas. I think having like the origins of Gorm's family would be a really interesting thing. Of course, you read Yaira #1, you've got Gorm. Yaira lands centuries before the current timeline of the Rippaverse, and she has a family. She, sees her great grandchildren grow old and die before she leaves, and she goes, wanders the earth alone, and eventually she becomes Sally Rodella. But I'm sure she had other aliases between then and now. Anyway, that is definitely a really cool era. Like prehistory would be a really interesting thing, and you could have Gorm's family and the origin of his tribe be that story, and then it could end with Gorm meeting Yaira. That'd be a really cool thing to do, and I definitely think they should do that. And of course, the future, like a 2099, would be really good. We got Mike S. Miller. Of course, he did Injustice, and he also did Horseman #1 cover B, the retro cover for Horseman #1. And that's his Rippaverse credit. And he says Yakuza/Gangland. A Yakuza would be really cool. I think having Darren Fontano get like a Club Merc series, and having like the Yakuza be someone that he's working with or someone he's working against. It could go either way with Darren. That would be really interesting. Let's see. So Solid Snake better than Sam Fisher. Yes, going for like the Metal Gear vibes would be really cool as well. And I was right. It is Sam Fisher. Let's see. So Garfield's Bizarre Adventure says John's Longbacks was on a Renowned Zero stream the other day promoting the Patriarch issue 2. He said he was more than willing to appear on Braxcast if you ever invited him. Yeah, I would totally love to get John Longbox on here, and I believe he's DM'd me. Especially when I reviewed, it was Heroic Tales, Garfield. So Heroic Tales issue 2 is going right now, and that's definitely something I want to I want to get. But yeah, I 9 p.m. is my bed is around my bedtime, so I knew about that live stream, and I like Renowned Zero. Definitely been very critical of Nintendo recently, and I'm a bit of a Nintendo fanboy, I'll admit. But yeah, Nintendo hasn't necessarily they've always been corporate. They've made a lot of anti-consumer decisions, even before the this current debacle of the Switch 2, and even during the Switch era. It's just the Switch was such a phenomenon, and it maintained that because Nintendo they actually make video games for their video game console, and they're actually good. I think there was one Pokemon game. Oh, I forget that was the Buggy Mess that Nintendo had. But most of their releases are pretty solid. They're not all like absolute smash hits, but most of them are pretty good. Of course, Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild have those frame rate drops, but they're very playable to me. And I think Nintendo is a fantastic game developer, but a lot of the charm that Nintendo has really gone away. But anyway, that's a whole other discussion. Yeah, so our Garfield is saying the Patriarch is his flagship character, not the title. And I think the Patriarch is going to get his own series. And I definitely want him to. He's fantastic. And we'll since we're talking about comic books, yep. I got a follower. Hopefully that's not one of the OF bots. But we'll go. What am I typing in? Heroic Tales. So Heroic Tales issue 2 is definitely one I want to back. Let's see. FMC. Because I believe it's launched on Heroic Tales. Fund my comic. Well, this is the second book. But we'll go for let's see, Fund My Comic, and should be, yep, there we go. So Heroic Tales #2, and John's such a passionate guy. So whenever he talks about this, and you get him talking, and he'll talk about like stuff that's happening, like like issue 3, issue 4, issue 5. I think in Heroic Tales he mentioned, or in my review of Heroic Tales on YouTube, he left a comment that I forget the character's name. But he appears in the backup story for the Father's Day, what comes after Father's Day. And I like that. It was a pretty interesting thing, but it's just like you need more of it. Let's see, but he always talks about, he's very passionate. That's the thing, and he talked about Mary Sue while issue 1 was releasing during his campaign. Of course, the fulfillment as well. And she's I like the concept of her character, and we're going to see Mary Sue in the backup story, and of course we're going to get more Patriarch. And this is going to be a classic flip book comic book. And the only one of these I have is from Andy Smith, and I have the X-rated version of it. So I'm never going to do a YouTube review of it, but it's like the cave story, and Andy Smith drew one where they wore loincloths. You drew one where they weren't wearing anything, and I got that one. So I wouldn't review that, but I kind of like that one. But this is the same idea. So you have the patriarch on one side, and then you physically flip the book, and you get to read the backup story. So I absolutely love that. So, and that's a classic comic book thing. So John knows his comics, and he loves the retro stuff. So he does the fantastic retro stuff. And Student of God is saying, I back John Longbox. His villain story is super good. Yeah. Oh yeah. You're talking about the first one on Heroic Tales #1. Yeah, that was I liked it. I definitely, for a first effort, was absolutely fantastic, and especially the patriarch. What really stood out to me is the patriarch. He's got this very solid world that he has in his mind. He wants to develop it, so which is why I think the patriarch needs to have its own ongoing series where he gets to explain this, and he's doing this in like I'd say 35 to 40 page issues, around the length of Vatican City, which I reviewed this month as well. I got a review copy of that very graciously from Mark Millar. Of course, Narwhal let me in. I'll let me in on that. He likes my reviews because I talk that. So yeah, if you're still going, I can join in. Oh yeah, fantastic! I would love to have you, Andrew. So I'm going to post the link there. You are welcome to come in. I am still going. I still, we're only an hour in, so I'll go for another 30 minutes to an hour because I like to do. I think 2 hours is a good length for me. I don't want to do like these 3 to 6 hour live streams. It's just too much for me, especially after the work day on Friday night. And I like to go to bed early because my because I used to be like a night owl, and then I started working overnight, and now I have regular hours, but I still get up really early so I can go to the gym before my job. My job starts a little bit earlier than 9. But I also get out a little bit earlier than 5, or a decent amount earlier than 5. So I think the schedule I had, the sleep schedule, my exercise schedule, really works well for me currently. So, but we'll see what happens. Let's see. So, I'm going live in 30 minutes should line up well. Yep. Let's see. So yeah, 30 minutes to an hour, that'll line up well. I'll definitely tune in. But yeah, I definitely got to read Magic Cop and Lost Pages. You're so nice to send those review copies. And they're pretty high quality, except the Magic Cop one is a bit busted up, but he found that was an extra copy. So you should definitely get that book back in print. Say Lulu does print on demand, and that's been my printer for my novels. And they do comic books as well. So I'd look into doing something like that because you don't want to have books that you've made where you can't sell them consistently. That's definitely because when I put this review for Magic Cop out. And I don't have the biggest reach, but there will probably be at least one person will be like, oh, I want to read that book, I want to buy it. And if it's not out of stock, then if it is out of stock, then you're losing a sale, right? Having the limited edition cover is one thing, like how Great War Separation A. Great War Separation 2 cover A is out of stock, but that's a limited edition cover. But it's like if you just want to read the book, right, the Great War Separation, you can always get those mass print covers, and that's true for the entirety of the Rippaverse. It's just that you have to get in where you fit in for those limited edition covers. But anyway, that's the whole thing. Sorry, Andrew, to leave you hanging there. I always ramble, but it's really nice to chat with you again. Hopefully, you're having a good Friday.
It's been a great Good Friday. Good Friday is always good because we know it comes 2 days after. So I'm pretty pleased. I'm happy and I'm blessed, and it's been a good day.
Yeah, no, fantastic. So, I guess this is going to be the impromptu talking about the Ripazine, because I interviewed you for 2 episodes of the pre-recorded Braxcast, and you were like the first person I ever reviewed or ever interviewed on the Braxcast.
I remember.
Yeah. Of course you do. And we talked about the first 2 issues of the Ripazine, so the perfect time to talk about the third issue of the Ripazine. So, how was working with Taro on this short story in terms of making sure it fit well within the Ripazine, different from working with Eric July? Because of course he was the writer for the first 2 short stories in Sersha and Salvage.
So I don't know how how much you've caught of the streams that Kara's been on over on the main Rippaverse channel, like the Zine 3 closeout stream that we had, where she and Eric were streaming. And she talked a lot about the process, what was in her mind when she was creating Dirty Deeds and whatnot. She actually had that short story written well before Zine 3 was a thing. Like she wrote that and brought it to Eric and was like, I want to put this here. Do you want it? And she did the pitch, and Eric was like, yeah, I want it. And so then it became a thing in terms of like it getting greenlit. Like it was already drawn as well. Like the art was already done. It just needed to be colored. The pencils, the line work, and the story itself, the script, all of that were done. All that needed to happen were colors and lettering. So it was about as ready to go a project as one could possibly have. The process, I was aware of the project, and I'm the editor on the project, and so I chatted with Caro quite a bit about the story and about where these characters come from in terms of like what their backstories are, which you guys will learn down the road, where she plans on taking them down the road. Should this turn into an ongoing or at least a limited series? Right now, y'all's feedback has been tremendous for it so far. So thank you, everybody that has purchased Ripazine 3 and who has been giving us feedback on what you thought about the Dirty Deeds short story by Caro Brown. And Evan Scale, obviously, his art's tremendous. Marco Lesko on colors, he did a great job as well. You guys' feedback has been pretty overwhelmingly positive thus far. I've only seen, out of all of the dozens of reviews I've seen feedback-wise, I've only seen 2 people be like, like art was really cool, the character designs were really cool, story wasn't for me. And those are mostly people who just like sci-fi isn't their thing, right? And so it's like, well, you know what?
Yep.
Not everybody is going to love everything, and that's totally okay. But guys, keep it up. That way we can greenlight the full thing.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree. And for me, the biggest weakness in Dirty Deeds is the fact that Carol's got a lot to tell with this story, clearly. And you just can't get it all out in 16 pages. So, like, the middle, like, there's some things that, like, kind of confuse me a bit. And that's why I was reading a review on Reddit, because there was the Rippaverse subreddit. That's the only subreddit I go on. It's just to post the Braxcast stuff. I have fallen out of using Reddit outside of that. But anyway, someone was just saying like I didn't get the pacing and stuff wasn't introduced. So I think having at least a full book, a one shot, like Garfield said, and he says his favorite story in the Ripazine so far, the team dynamic and alien setting, and I absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. Ripazine, I think Dirty Deeds is definitely probably the best because it's a story that's structured for its page count, whereas Saoirse and Salvage feel like, and they basically are, with them both getting full stories, right? Because Saoirse, number one, is going to cover Mando Mansion, and of course, Salvage, I imagine, is going to cover whoever was going after him at the end of the Salvage short story. So they feel like snippets of these larger stories, whereas
yes, redacted.
Yes. Whereas Dirty Deeds is his own self-contained short story, it just leaves you wanting more because there's clearly more, which is why I think Evan and Caro need to get on to making, like I said, a limited series that's about 300 pages. So you can personally tell Eric that is my mandate. So yes, fedora and a katana, because I'm definitely a redditor. Yes, I watch rom-com anime too, and I haven't left my mother's basement quite yet. So yes, I am the quintessential redditor, and I'm also a Discord moderator. You ever see that like one girl who goes like, "You're a Reddit and Discord moderator"? Oh man,
I have not seen that.
Yeah, no, but that's my very socially awkward joke. But yeah, if you see that like clip, I'm not gonna search it out, but it's like really getting at the peak masculinity that is found only on the among the Reddit moderators. It used to be
only on Reddit.
Only on Reddit. Let's see. So I haven't seen any Rippaverse story get that. Any recent Rippaverse story get that much positivity actually, or
It was pretty fast and
Yep.
overwhelmingly positive for Dirty Deeds. Like not 2 days after we had started fulfillment, and people barely got it into their hands. They gobbled it up and let us know what they thought of it. And that's fantastic. We love the feedback. We need the feedback, whether you guys love something or you're mad on it, you just don't like it. Whatever it is, we need to take that into account, because again, that's going to determine whether or not we move forward with stories or assess how we're going to move forward with stories. Is it something where this justifies a long form ongoing due to the response, or is this something that maybe we put out a one shot first, see how that goes, or maybe we put out a limited series, see how that goes? It all depends on a number of factors, but obviously sales is part of it. But what you guys think of it, and how much you all enjoy it and are willing to, spend your hard-earned money on a full book or a full series, that has a lot to do with it. And so if everybody, or the vast majority of people who picked it up, are enjoying it, that's going to speak a lot towards this thing getting its full release.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. So yeah, CJ is in the chat. Says release Dirty Deeds #1. I agree. Where is it?
I agree.
Yeah, so that's definitely so.
I already know where Caro's going to take it.
Yeah, so of course you do, and you're not going to tell me, and you're not going to tell me, of course. So Student of God says, I've only seen people like it, haven't read it. Hopefully, it's not too wordy. Women tend to write too much, and I think that's
true. It is
true.
not particularly wordy at all.
Yeah, I don't think of Dirty Deeds as a wordy story. So it's got a great amount of dialogue in it, yeah, I mean, I think the type of women that are prone to doing that, I don't think Caro is among that company, and that's why.
No, she's not.
Yeah,
she believes in tight dialogue.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so Mike has bad knees on his phone, so I think that's why you had the roofers type of. But it's all okay. Still getting at it, but anyway. So other things in the Ripazine, of course, talking about Michael Copper's Gentleman's Club. I absolutely love that. And not doing that would be bitch behavior, right? So why don't you talk about the process with getting Michael's Hot Tea and Lillian, our Michael Copper's Gentleman Club and Lillian's Hot Tea, and also other stuff you'd like to see in the Forest Park? Is that just general characters like an Alpha Core status report would be a really cool thing.
So the Michael and Lillian pieces are fun, and the twins have a lot of fun writing those up, especially considering they're each writing those individual characters' respective solo books that will be releasing this year, Black Eye Club and The Cursed. So they get to have a lot of fun when they're doing those. I'm a big fan of Harriet's Kitchen personally, just because all of those recipes are freaking delicious. They're kind of ridiculously good. The catch and kill thing, I think, is a cool feature. Making it something that it's a character who actually you might more expect to see presence from them in some sort of a publication, in some sort of a newspaper or what have you. I think finding a way to make sure that it stays very much separate in tone from Lillian's Hot Tea is going to be important going forward. And if we can do that, it's going to, I think, be a big hit with the fans, because I think it's going to be one of those features in the zine that is going to have much more leeway in terms of the type of things that they can talk about, because we're talking about a detective who, or a reporter who actually is going to be researching a lot of things. And so they would know a lot of things. And so we'll have to be careful on the editorial side about what those things that we're allowing spoiler wise to be put in there. But I think that's a really fun section. And I'm glad that we're doing that now. As far as what we could add beyond that, I'm not 100% certain yet what I want to do. But there are a few things we're kicking around.
Yeah, well, I'm always open to write stuff for the Ripazines. You ever need a guy to give you a short story comic book script? You want someone to write a Braxwell short story or a Billy Bob Quinn short story? I'd be willing to do that. But anyways, and plus I got tons of I could do like tons of things for like the Forest Park Gazette. Because I got doing an Alpha Core status report or going on through like a Norfolk like band like concert review. You could have things like you could have like I don't know. There's a lot of things you can do because you guys are just introducing so much stuff. We got Great War Separation, putting this foundational lore in. Of course, you've got Michael Copperly Renashi. You've got what's going on in Bloodroof, like I just mentioned, Norfolk. There's just so many angles you could go about. Go with the Forest Park Gazette that I think limiting it to just Michael and Lillian is not. I think that's an ill-advised move. I think to get my my wording correctly, and I think you definitely want to put more in. But I think what the current structure is pretty good. It's just like I said, I think doing something with Alpha Core, the Forest Park Gazette, or even like Darren Fontano would be really cool. But I love that catch and kill stuff, and it gave like some really cool insights into stuff that's going to happen. Of course, like Lillian talking about stuff that happened in past books, and like the end of Alpha Core #1 in Yaira #1 was really, really cool to see, and I absolutely love stuff like that. And Mike Has Bad Knees is saying, I think spoilers in the zine are a good reward for the most dedicated fans. I wholeheartedly agree, because Lillian is referencing stuff that's happened in Alpha Core and Yaira. And if you read those books, and also Bloodroof, and I believe Horseman as well, and if you read those books like me, it's a really enriching experience. And if you're someone who's getting into it and you read the zine and then you pick up Yaira, or you get into Alpha Core and you see like, oh, that's what Lillian was talking about. So I think it's all really fantastic stuff, and there's just so many more angles you could go about that limiting yourself to only Lillian and Michael is I think going to make it feel more cramped, and that's not what you guys want if you want to be open and vast yet interconnected.
Yeah, no, we certainly plan on having more sections, and the sections that people like most will stick around and maybe get expanded upon. And if there are things that we think are worth testing out, because one of the reasons why we're able to keep the zine at such a nice price point and such a good entry level price point is that page count. So we don't want to make it too thick, because that's resources we could be putting towards full books and series and things like that. However, there are other sections that we can be adding into the zine, and we are planning on adding more things to it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Though there certainly is the need to keep it like a keep in that magazine format, and you don't want to get the page count up there, and you don't want to make this full book. So yeah, getting at the current page count, making it a quarterly release, I think is going to be really fantastic. And you can always cut in.
If we can get the zine to a quarterly release, I would be over the moon.
Oh, we've got Caro, the writer herself. So
Favorite.
yeah, absolutely fantastic. Thank you for showing up to this chat. So if you're busy, that's okay. But if not, and you want to hop in, you want to gab with us, especially since you're the writer of Dirty Deeds, and you did a fantastic job, by the way. So hats off to you. Hopefully, you get to write more, and of course, hopefully you do more stuff for the Rippaverse in general. So CJ saying hail Carol, of course. There's that. But anyway, so we were in a pretty good spot for the Rippaverse. I think we've covered basically everything in the Rippazine I wanted to cover. The thing is that where do you see narratively the Rippaverse going after Isom 3, especially in the context of the end of Bloodroof #1. I know you can't speak too much of it, but speak at least as vaguely as possible about the future of the Rippaverse after Isom #3.
Well, in very broad terms, as Eric has hinted at, not even so much hinted at, he's outright stated in a stream where we are slowly, very much pacing ourselves. We are slowly building towards a larger event down the line. Now, what exactly that event is, what it entails, who it involves, and what the fallout of it's going to be, I can neither confirm nor deny. However, there is big stuff coming. no self-respecting, expanding comic book universe would completely ignore doing events for the entirety of their lifespan. You got to have one eventually. But as I've said before on Alvin's uh, X space and in other streams and things like that, you really got to pace yourself when you're moving towards these big events, because the second you introduce that big event, you're doing two main things. One of which, you are inevitably, if it's some big crossover event, which is going to have to involve multiple characters and things like that, then presumably whatever the threat is such that it is so powerful that you require a crossover that involves all of these characters, right? You don't put Thanos in somebody's, single solo series very frequently, unless you're dealing with a crazy powerful character. Typically, you want to have a threat that is going to actually justify the presence and response of all these characters working in tandem, right? But when you do that, you are ratcheting up the threat level of your universe. And when you ratchet up the threat level, you're inevitably also going to have to crank up the power scaling on your universe as well. Crank up the power scaling on your individual characters to some degree or another. Maybe some characters more than others, but it's kind of an inevitable thing. Something's going to have to happen. Something's going to have to give, right? Now, the other thing is that you run the risk of not locking, but making the expectation within your audience such that you're just building towards the next event. And then you get them only wanting to know what the next event is. And then there becomes less focus on the individual characters, individual teams and stories that are being told. And you don't want to do that if you want all these other stories to matter. And part of our code of ethics is these stories are all supposed to matter, right? So when we do the event, and again, it's not right around the corner. It's going to be a little bit. You guys are going to have to be patient. Yes, Eric teased that there's one coming. It's not tomorrow. It's not next month. It's going to be a hot minute. But when it does happen, you guys will be in for a treat. However, there won't be another one after that for likely another hot minute, because we want to still make sure we're putting a lot of emphasis and importance on the individual characters and their stories and their growth, because they all matter.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the pace that you guys are going is fantastic. So I definitely think the foundation to whatever event you guys are building towards is going to be laid with the ill-advised arc, which is why I'm really excited to see what happens after the ill-advised arc, because that's going to be beginning to lead us into that first big event for the Rippaverse, and that's going to be absolutely fantastic. But yeah, you don't want to overuse events, and you don't want to make them where they just cheapen the experience. I think Invincible's event with Reboot, like towards the end of it, like absolutely ruined the series for me. Like it just kind of fell apart with the reboot, because it was just a waste of a trade. Because I got all the trades. I think it's like 25 trades for all of Invincible. And that's like the 22nd, I think, if I'm getting it correctly. And it was absolutely like it was just taking this opportunity to continue the story that was really good up to that point, and then just really throwing a wrench in it that just didn't feel justified, just to have an event. But this is the thing where I think where you guys with the Rippaverse are doing it differently, moving differently, so to speak, is that these stories matter. You're going to tell a series of stories that matter that lead up into something that's really meaningful. And then you're going to have a cool down period so the next really meaningful thing can happen that builds the universe. And that means that the events aren't going to be as often, but when they do happen, they're going to have a lot more payoff, and they're going to be a lot more satisfying to the fans. And that's the thing that I really like. It just means that you need more patience, and you need to have an audience of people that are in the mindset of consume the thing and get excited for the next thing. You want to have people
No, we
who
want people to be along for the ride, and we want people to
exactly.
enjoy it, and we want people to be able to sit back and enjoy it, even if the story is leaving them on the edge of their seat. Those two things can be true at once. There are a lot of building blocks still to be laid. The foundation is mostly there, but there's still a lot of pieces, missing pieces to our universe. There's still a lot of things that we can and should and will add. Genres, types of characters, things like that. There's a lot to still build before our narratively our universe is remotely ready for even starting to move towards that first big event, because that first big event, if it's a real crossover, it should have quite a few characters and quite a few meaningful characters. I mean, and you, if those characters are to be meaningful, people have had to have spent enough time with them for them to be meaningful to the reader. And so it's going to be a minute, because we got a lot of characters coming down the pipeline, a lot of stories coming down the pipeline, stuff y'all don't know nothing about, stuff that was not teased or announced during the Rippaverse, stuff that hasn't been teased or hinted at yet, anything since then. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do, and it's
Yeah.
gonna be a real fun time. This is gonna be a real fun year. There's stuff coming out this year you guys don't know about.
Oh my god. And we haven't even gotten to all the stuff you guys promised in the Rippaverse. So
Yeah, I know.
that's the insane
We're
thing to me.
sprinkling in other things as
Yeah.
we're working on and
Yeah.
dropping all those other books.
Yeah, and those other one of yeah, your Furry is one of those other things.
Mhm.
That's ridiculous to me. Because it's launching this Monday. You guys are really, really out for me. But anyway, that's going to be really exciting to see Ira Free. And of course, I let's wait for Monday to come around, and I'll talk about that next week. Because it's just around the corner. But Student of God wants me to ask you about this is stuff that is missing, and I think one of the things that he said is a Joker type of character,
Sure.
like a Deadpool, and Deadpool is a very comedic character, the Merc with a mouth. I have the Deadpool manga. I know at the end of the first volume, I have the second one. I need to read it. Thanos comes in, and it's on brand for that because just
Mhm.
how inherently ridiculous it is. So a character like that would be really cool. But what characters do you? And I know this is, I guess, a bit unfair because you know what's coming. But what do you think is missing the most, like from your perspective at the Rippaverse, and of course, this being your job to keep on tabs with what the community wants? What do you think is missing the most from the Rippaverse, and what do you think is going to come in the future that's going to get rectified the soonest? I would say.
How do I choose my wording here? So there are quite a few things actually that we are still missing, and that's just by way of us being still such a young company. Our universe is only 3 years old. So as I just said a few moments ago, there's still a lot of foundation to be laid, and a lot of building blocks still missing. And those building blocks are characters, are genres, are personality types, all sorts of things. And I think we're starting to see some of those holes being filled, and that's taking up space in different pockets of our comic book universe with the advent of characters like Zaylan, characters like Dirty Deeds. We're starting to slowly build out kind of that space sector of our world, and there's still a lot. I mean, there's kind of an infinite amount of things you can do with that. That's the most daunting, but also at the same time, kind of the most uh, liberating and creatively free section of a universe you can really play around with. It's a very open sandbox to play with. However, in terms of Earth, there are quite a few things we still need. I think tapping into kind of the supernatural, like we're seeing obviously with Bloodruth. Shout out to the Saskas for Bloodruth #1 being such a massive success. Bloodruth #2, I'm sure, is going to be a huge success as well. It's a fantastic script. And Michael Montanat's art on it is absolutely stunning, just as it was with the first one, if not better. I think building out the supernatural a little bit more slowly. Again, all of these things are going to require proper pacing in terms of how quickly you build them out, especially if they are subgenres or genres that are usually less widely consumed by comic book fans. So horror and cosmic, that's usually on the lower end, both of those, in terms of how many people actually read those types of stories. That's why we're not trying to flood our release schedule with stories from those types of those genres. But oddly enough, Rippaverse fans, y'all have kind of shown yourself to be a little different, a little skewed from the normal comic book fan industry, in that, I mean, Bloodruth, it did gangbusters, and that was a horror and supernatural book, right? And so that blew us away. Zaylin has been doing fantastic. Ripazine #3, which was sold like with this in mind, right? With Dirty Deeds as being the selling point. And that's more space stuff, right? And space, cosmic stuff. Um that's been very successful for us already. And that kind of goes against the grain of what normally is the case in the average when it comes to the comic book industry. However, we're going to definitely see a lot more stories that are in more the traditional comic book form, in terms of, obviously we've got Chuck on the ongoing for Horsemen now, and Chuck and Joe want to write and draw a lot more Horsemen. They love the character, y'all love the character, we love the character. Caro definitely loves the character. We're all about Horsemen over here, and we're happy to bring you more as long as you guys keep buying it. More superheroes. I would say we need a superhero.
Yeah, I agree.
Like a traditional,
like
superhero.
a Superman type of character, because Brian Solari's got
A
those.
Superman, or you could really insert anybody here, right? Superman, Spider-Man. You need a good-hearted character who is that, like, it doesn't have to be like a one-to-one Boy Scout to Clark Kent, right? Because nobody's Clark Kent except for Clark Kent. But yes, to your point, like, we've got Brian Solari, who has, at least two of Clark's powers, right? He's got the super flight and he's got the super strength, but he's not a quote unquote superhero, right? He's actually a lawman. He's part of the Flores Park Police. Alpha Corps is a wing. It is the accept wing of the Flores Park Police Department. And as we know, they are tasked strictly with dealing with accept related threats, right? So Brian Solari isn't technically authorized just be going around like busting robbers and things like that. That's the FPD's job, right? You've got characters like Sydney. I wouldn't consider Sydney a superhero. She, any more than I would consider Zatanna or Constantine a superhero. They're phenomenal characters, and we need those characters, and those characters are wonderful. However, they're still not superheroes. Hector, Horseman, he's definitely not a superhero. He's a brutal vigilante, right? He's your Punisher type character. I wouldn't consider Punisher a superhero. I would consider him a badass vigilante. And we've got one of the greatest of all time writers for that character as the creator and writer of Horseman. So he's in really good hands there. But we need a superhero, and we need someone who's maybe more of like that everyman, more relatable character that people can relate to him or her. And I think that'll go a long way towards filling out the gaps. Because when you start a comic book universe, you're inevitably going to have gaps, because you don't create all of the characters that you're literally going to have ever right at once, right from jump. That's not how it works. You figure out what the things are that you need, and your audience also tells you that. Like, I pay attention to the threads. I pay attention to the Discord. There are a lot of conversations that have happened over the last several months, year plus, in terms of what you guys are hoping to see at some point down the road. We take those notes and bring those notes to Eric. We analyze those, right? We look at the market data. We look at, sales. We look at, okay, so like, is there a slot in our universe for a character like this? And then we go about, okay, when can a character like this actually make an entrance that makes sense. I think a superhero is probably what I would most want to see right now. I'm a classic superhero guy. I love the goofy characters, and not goofy like Deadpool meme, haha. I mean goofy as in like Peter Parker, like Spider-Man. I like that type of goofy. I'm actually not a gigantic Deadpool fan, personally, and I think Deadpool is a little outplayed and overplayed right now when it comes to Marvel. Whether or not we'll have a character that kind of slides into that pocket or is an analog to Deadpool at some point down the road, I don't know. That's not something that I think would fit in our current slate. Or and that's not to say that I couldn't be wrong there. But I don't think right now where we're at in our universe building, in our world building, that type of character would be appropriate in terms of it. They wouldn't add enough to the world building, I
And
don't think.
I agree. And the thing with Deadpool, I like Deadpool, and I haven't read much. I've read I think a single one shot from I got it as a back issue from my LCS, and I read the one volume of the Deadpool manga, and I saw the Deadpool movie in 16 and its sequel, and I liked the first Deadpool movie is really good. But that's a character that requires really good writing to pull off. And with the Rippaverse, a lot of the writing and the storytelling is in the context of it building this universe. And if, like you're saying, you don't find a place to slot that character in, it's not going to work. So I definitely think it's something that can happen. Let's see. So, talking about Captain America as like the type of superhero
Yeah,
character.
he's kind of a classic superhero Boy
Yeah.
Scout type character. I mean, he fits into that same pocket as Superman for the most part.
I'd say, yeah, I'd say if we're going to talk about the MCU, I think the Captain America, the first Avenger movie is probably one of the better movies. If I think that and Iron
I would
Man,
agree.
but I'm very young. I'm 27, so Iron Man came out when I was like 10, and I
Jeez.
think and then Captain America came out. That came out like 11. So I was like 13. So I was like basically a kid. So I guess I have those rose tinted glasses. Let's see. We've got more supernatural, like when angels and demons fall. We got a little bit of that in Blood Roof, of course. Well, the angels on the Blood Roof side was more of an intercession from Mary, right? Because she says the Marian prayer, and then
Yeah.
she's saved from Morningstar on that basis, if I'm getting that correct. But I think one of the things personally, from what we saw in Isom 2, it seemed like young Isom was a traditional superhero type, and I definitely would love a young Isom series, right? That starts with him getting into the game and then it ending with his fight with Shodron, right? That would be fantastic to have as a limited series, and that's definitely something that really ought to happen.
Think Isom, when he was earlier in his career, was somewhere between the way that I read it anyway, and the way that I see him, is very much somewhere in between like and very loosely using these terms, like a Batman and Daredevil, somewhere between there. He's not a brutal vigilante. He does have superpowers, but he fits into a unique pocket, and that's one of the things I love so much about Isom as a character, is he is something unique. He is something new and fresh, and you guys, you're not ready for Isom 3. You really aren't. You're going to read it, and when some of the revelations happen in that book, you're going to be like, wait, what? Because I did. When I read the script, I was like, what? What is happening right now? How is this actually possible? How is this a thing? This is amazing. And I can't wait to finally get Isom 3 into y'all's hands, because that book is an absolute banger. It's also freaking thick as hell. 144 dang pages.
Yeah, 144 pages.
We don't have kaijus in the Rippaverse right now, but the book,
He is a
Isom
kaiju.
3, is a kaiju. Okay.
So yeah, I guess to keep with the MCU a little bit, because Garfield mentioned this. The first 4 is underrated. That scene where Odin punishes 4 is amazing. And I'll
Oh
say,
yeah.
I think every MCU movie, that first phase, I believe it ends with the Avengers. All those movies are really solid. And then I think Guardians of the Galaxy is probably, I haven't seen the original Guardians of the Galaxy. That's probably like the last like really good
You haven't
MCU.
seen the first Guardians of the Galaxy?
I have not. I have a Disney Plus login, but it's not something. It's like I don't like the brand association with Disney is like even though I had the login, I don't have to pay for it. It's like I don't have that encouragement. I played the game Guardians of the Galaxy. That was made by Crystal Dynamics. I really like that. So I know I
I
would
heard it was a
really,
good game.
yeah, it's a good game. If you can get it on sale, it's good for like a couple of weekends. It's like a game you can beat in about I think 30 hours or so.
Mhm.
And it's a fun game. And I think I think it just I'm not I couldn't I couldn't say it how well it pays homage to the comics, but Adam Warlock is in the game. He comes in near at the end.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I liked it. It was a good game, as well made, and like if you can get it for $20 or less, it's definitely worth it. And it's got a new game plus 2 mode as well. And I remember I played it on PC. I remember it running like a dream. So it's not it was not a buggy mess when it came out, and it certainly wouldn't be now. But yeah, I guess I've been going at it for about an hour and 40 minutes. So definitely want to start winding it down. And I think we've had a really good discussion. Of course, we talked about Ripazine number 3. We talked about that in detail, and I definitely love your insight on that, especially from like the editor's perspective, because I'm coming at it from the reader's perspective.
Sure.
So like I just want more and more because I love it so much. It's like, yeah, we gotta keep
More
the
is
pace.
coming.
Yeah, we
A
gotta
lot
keep the
more is
pace.
coming.
Yeah, but it's like talking about like having like thicker Ripazines. It's like, oh, you gotta actually keep the page count in mind, right? But that's a really interesting thing, and of course, always fantastic to talk to you about what's coming next. So, with Isom Free, that is going to be, I think, the big thing for the Rippaverse this year, and then I think, not that I think it, but that's going to be like when stuff really starts popping off in my mind, because you guys have got this really jam-packed release schedule, and having that first arc is really going to conclude like this is like where we've laid the foundation in terms of getting the books out and getting on a good production release schedule, and now it's just like balls to the wall. Is that how you guys are seeing it there, with where you're at now?
Um, we definitely see ISON 3, the wrap up of the ill-advised arc, kind of the conclusion to our flagship character's first story arc as the big book for this year. Obviously, it's the one with the longer collection period, and all of that. It's a thick book. It's our longest book that we're releasing this year right now. Um, it's definitely kind of the big book that y'all know about, at least, but we do have more stuff coming. Um, what the next book that is going to be on ISOM's 3 level is, I couldn't even say. You guys throw curveballs at us sometimes with how much you support a book that we expect to perform well, but you guys make it perform demonstrably more so. So it's really tough to say a lot, because remember, a lot of this comes down to your guys' responses. Um, you guys had a tremendous response in ISOM 1 to 1 to see more Alpha Core and Yaira. So we immediately greenlit them to have full books, and y'all's responses to those books when we put up those campaigns was tremendous. And so when you guys respond well to things, that's what we tend to lean on, when you respond well, both financially and in terms of your feedback for how you just like the work, right? How you like the art, how you like the story, the characters and whatnot. So a lot of it is just not up in the air per se, but a lot of it is, and this where the benefit of being an independent company comes in. We're able to pivot kind of on a dime, and we do and have many times, where we wait to see what you guys think, and then when we find out what you guys think, we start shifting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you guys have been pretty good at listening to the fans, giving them what they want. I think Definitely with Horseman, because that was a character that was introduced at MegaCon. Everybody responded to him really positively, and then when his book came out, and of course it made about $800,000 during that collection, and then everybody got
Just
it.
crazy.
Yeah, everybody liked it. I'm sure Horseman has, in totality between the first book and Welcome to Flores Park, has made over $1 million when you combine those two. And that is
Oh yeah, especially if you take into account back-end sales.
yeah, that's what I was talking about. So there's definitely a lot of staying power with Horseman. And that's one of the things I really like, because I think he's going to be a great character to introduce a lot of interesting things. Of course, I also think about that with that about Alpha Core. That's why Alpha Core 2 is my most anticipated book, I would say, after Isom 3. But the book that I really want to read next is Alpha Core number 2. And of course, I just want more Alpha Core. So that's one of the things, is that I guess this is the last thing, and we can wrap this up. And soon have got us saying he doesn't get a backward CD with Norfolk. He's going to be very disappointed. Also going to be not disappointed, but one of the things is that with Joe, Joe being on Horseman and Alpha Core is 2 ongoing series, and of course doing Zalen. There's so much work that he's doing. Is there any possibility of something like Alpha Core getting handed off to another artist? I think Jack Herbert would be pretty good after Great
Not in the
Wars.
near future, no.
Not in the near future. And that's one of the things that I like.
Joe is a
But
workhorse.
yeah,
He is a comic book illustrator, and so he does what a comic book illustrator should do, which is he illustrates comics. That is his job. That is his full-time work. And so when he has an assignment, he gets right to it. Never have to worry about deadlines with Joe. He cranks out pages like a freaking machine. He's an absolute beast. He always turns his work in on time, and his pencils. You guys will see. Like when I know everybody that picked up The Art of Joe Bennett issue 1 or book 1 really enjoyed seeing his raw work on, and that was just Alpha Core. Like he and Chuck hadn't hit their stride yet in terms of working together. The second book of The Art of Joe Bennett, holy crap. When you guys see the raw pencils from Joe for Zalen and Horseman in that, you're gonna
yeah.
freak. He's so good. We don't him juggling three books right now. That's nothing for him.
Okay, honestly, love to see that. Now, especially since he's in this good production schedule, I imagine, he could probably get, like, I don't know, maybe like 5 Joe Bennett books out a year. And if that's spread across 3 books, I think that's I 3 books. I think that's pretty good, because the way I'm looking at it, Zalen is definitely going to justify a limited series, at least with how well people are responding to it. And I can't imagine the reviews for Zalen being bad. It's like, Garfield is saying that Joe Bennett actually draws for a living. Oh, yeah, I think we all
Believe it or
know.
not.
Yeah, exactly. You can spend time drawing and then actually finish the books and then get them out to people. That's a revolutionary concept that someone recently invented, apparently. Um,
It's not revolutionary for Joe Bennett, that's for
yeah,
sure.
no, I think he's probably been doing it since the '90s. He was on so much stuff. He did Incredible Hulk and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of other stuff. But that's nice to hear, because Alpha Core was so good, and a big reason of that was all the 2-page spreads, especially the ending with Wilkins. That was the climax of the story, and it only was as good as it was because of that fantastic spread that showed Wilkins saving the day from the eagle's nest. And Joe has just got this way of, like, the detail he brings to everything he draws, and his perspective, and the way he draws everything, and then seeing those raw pencils. That's one of the things that I liked with the whole thing of Horseman number 1. You had one of those preview pages getting ripped apart, is that the raw pencils for that got uploaded, and I absolutely love seeing that. So hopefully they criticize every single page, so we have to get the raw pencils for everything. And The Art of Joe Bennett is a fantastic book. I reviewed it on the Braxcast. But like I said, I think we're going to wind down here. So we've got Zayd Comics, who are live streaming. So I'm going to put that link. So be sure to say hi to them, that I sent you. But I think we're going to go and really end things here because I think I've said everything I wanted to say. If you go any longer, you're going to say something you're not supposed to say, right? So anything else you want to say? It's been fantastic to have you on. Thank you so much. And this has been a fantastic week for the Rippaverse. It's Rippaverse freeze fulfilling. Of course, we got Yaira number 3. So what can the fans expect from Yaira number 3? And what can they expect from the Rippaverse in the future? And then I think we'll end it there.
As far as Yaira 3 goes, you guys can expect the action to be cranked up even further and the mysteries to be cranked up even further. And Yaira, as much as she's gone through in the first 2 books, that's not done. That's not over. The twins really put her through the ringer in issue 3, and there's some pretty cool reveals in that book. You guys are going to be excited when you get it into your hands. As far as the Ripazine goes, there are more new characters coming down the pipeline. More original stories. Who knows? Maybe even more writers. But there's a lot to look forward to. I love the Ripazine. The fact that we're able to test new ideas and see the fans' response in real time to things like salvage, insertion, dirty deeds, and whatever comes after that. It's really cool to witness, and it makes all the hard work that the team puts into it, from every facet, editorial, writing, art, all of it, pre-press. Our studio is fantastic. Shout out to them. There's a lot to look forward to with the Ripazine this year alone, and more into the future, even beyond that. And I will just say, you guys are going to get more Ripazine probably sooner than you realize.
Yeah, fantastic stuff to hear. Thank you so much. But like I said, just under 2 hours, so I think it's the perfect place to cut it. You guys have a fantastic Easter weekend, everybody. Thank you for showing up, and this has been so fun. And thank you again, Andrew, for your time and your enthusiasm and your fantastic work at the Rippaverse. But that is it. So we're signing off now. Again, link to Zay Comics is in the chat, so he's live streaming right now. So be sure to say hi, tell him who sent you. But we're done for the night. And